Officer Sarah Monroe had never believed in fate. Not until the stormy October evening when she found herself kneeling in the wreckage of a collapsed barn on the outskirts of Millridge, trying desperately to coax a terrified, injured German shepherd out from beneath a shattered beam. The call had come in as a routine disturbance, a neighbor reporting strange howls and flashing lights at an abandoned property. But what Sarah discovered when she arrived wasn't routine at all. The storm had toppled part of the barn roof, trapping the young dog beneath twisted metal and splintered wood. His eyes wide with pain and mistrust, every tremble in his body screaming that he didn't expect to make it out alive. Sarah, soaked to the bone, mud streaked across her uniform, didn't hesitate. She lowered herself into the rubble, whispering softly over the howling wind, her voice cracking as she promised the animal he wouldn't die alone. It took nearly 2 hours, a call for backup, and the strength of 3 firefighters to lift the beam enough for the dog to be pulled free. And the moment Sarah wrapped her arms around him, feeling the tremor of his ribs beneath blood-matted fur, she knew he wasn't just any stray. She named him Thunder, in honor of the storm that had tried to bury him, and the force with which he had clung to life. In the weeks that followed, Sarah barely left Thunder's side. The vet at the Millridge Animal Recovery Center said the dog had likely been abused, used as bait in illegal fights, then discarded like trash. His body bore the evidence, scars that told of violence, a broken rib that had healed wrong, teeth filed down, and the unmistakable fear in his eyes every time someone raised their hand too fast. But Sarah saw more than pain. She saw a flicker of something that mirrored her own story. She too bore invisible scars. Her father, once her hero, had fallen into addiction after retiring from the force, and Sarah had been the one to find him, lifeless, one cold December morning, a bottle in his hand and silence in the room. Since then, she had thrown herself into her work, building a wall of perfection around her heart, convincing herself that loyalty was a weakness and love an illusion. But Thunder shattered all that. Every slow wag of his tail, every hesitant step toward her, every night he chose to curl up by her side rather than hide in his crate, broke something open inside her. She started talking again, not just to Thunder, but to herself, aloud, late at night, as if the dog's silence demanded that she fill the void with her truth. When Thunder was finally cleared by the vet to return to an active life, Sarah requested permission to have him evaluated for K-9 service. Her commanding officer was skeptical, warning her that dogs with past trauma often couldn't adapt to the demands of law enforcement. But Sarah persisted, and Thunder, like he had done every day since the barn, proved them all wrong. He passed his basic obedience trials in record time, but it was during the situational simulations, gunshot response, suspect pursuit, narcotics detection, that he truly shined. He didn't just perform, he protected. He never left Sarah's side. If she gave a command, he obeyed. If she faltered, he waited. He was more than a partner. He was her shadow, her anchor, her second chance at believing in something bigger than herself. They were assigned to patrol together, and within months, they developed a reputation in Millridge. Monroe and Thunder became a phrase people whispered with admiration. Thunder helped bust a meth lab in an abandoned diner, found a missing Alzheimer's patient lost in the woods, and once intervened to stop a suicidal teen from jumping off the town's old steel bridge. He'd simply walked up, rested his head on the boy's trembling hand, and stayed there until help arrived. But the bond between Sarah and Thunder was tested in ways no training could prepare them for one brutal spring evening when they responded to a robbery gone wrong at a local grocery store. Shots were fired. Inside, chaos erupted. Sarah entered through the side door, thunder at her heel, and in the blur of seconds that followed, yelling, "Gunfire, glass shattering." Thunder leapt in front of her, intercepting a bullet meant for her heart. The sound of his yelp was something she would never forget, nor the silence that followed as she cradled him, blood soaking through her uniform, screaming for backup, for help, for someone, anyone, to save her dog. Thunder survived. Barely. The bullet had torn through muscle and grazed bone, but missed vital organs. The vet said it was a miracle. Sarah didn't believe in miracles until then. She stayed at Thunder's side every day of his recovery, sleeping in the animal hospital's cramped waiting room, feeding him by hand, singing to him softly the old lullaby her mother once sang to her before everything went dark. Thunder recovered, slowly. He limped for a while and bore a long scar down his side, but his spirit remained whole. When he returned to work, the whole precinct cheered. He received a medal, a custom badge, and a new vest embroidered with the words, "My partner, my hero." Sarah cried that day, openly, her arms wrapped around Thunder as the town gathered to celebrate them. Years passed. Cases came and went. Thunder aged, his snout silvering, his gait slowing, but his heart never wavered. And when the day came that he could no longer climb into the squad car on his own, Sarah made the hardest decision of her life and retired him. He took to home life easily, becoming a local celebrity at the dog park, a frequent guest at elementary schools where Sarah gave safety talks, and a constant presence in Sarah's life as she rose through the ranks. But time, as it does, was relentless. One snowy evening, after a walk where Thunder paused more than he trotted, he lay beside the fire, resting his head on Sarah's lap, and simply didn't get up. His breath slowed. His tail gave one final thump, and he was gone. Sarah didn't speak for days, but she kept Thunder's collar, his vest, and the bullet that had nearly taken her life, saved only because he had chosen hers over his. Eventually, she built a small memorial in her backyard, beneath the oak tree where Thunder had always napped, and every morning she placed a flower there. People sent letters, drawings, even a request for Thunder's story to be turned into a children's book. She agreed, not for herself, but so his memory could live on. And as she continued her service, training new recruits, she always told them, "Your partner doesn't have to speak to say everything that matters. Just listen, just trust, and never forget who'd take a bullet for you, even if he never asked for anything in return. Your partner doesn't have to speak to say everything that matters. Just listen, just trust, and never forget who'd take a bullet for you, even if he never asked for anything in return." That was the line Officer Sarah Monroe repeated at every academy graduation she attended, her voice thick with both pride and pain, eyes drifting for a moment to the framed photo she always carried of Thunder, sitting proud in his K9 vest, eyes bright and loyal. But behind that line lived a world no rookie could truly understand, until they lived it, until they too watched a partner age, weaken, and quietly slip away, leaving behind a silence that no siren or radio call could ever fill. Sarah tried to keep going, immersing herself in work, volunteering for high-risk assignments, mentoring younger officers. She adopted other dogs, rescues mostly, broken and afraid like Thunder once was, but none filled the void he had left. They were companions, yes, even friends. But Thunder had been something else. Thunder had been family. One morning, almost a year to the day after Thunder passed, Sarah was asked to evaluate a young K9 recruit, a stubborn, hyper-alert German shepherd named Diesel. The trainers had nearly given up on him. He's too impulsive, too reactive. No emotional discipline, they said. But something in Diesel's eyes stopped Sarah in her tracks. It wasn't just his intelligence. It was that same flicker of fierce survival, buried beneath uncertainty and fire, that she had seen in Thunder the day they met. She agreed to work with him for 2 weeks. 2 weeks turned into a month, and slowly, impossibly, Diesel began to change. He stopped flinching at sudden noises. He began to wait, to listen, to trust. Sarah, too, changed. For the first time in months, she found herself smiling, not out of habit, but from genuine joy. Diesel was nothing like Thunder, and yet, in strange, unspoken moments, he reminded her of the dog she had lost. Not in the way he acted, but in how he made her feel. Protected. Seen. Sarah didn't try to replace Thunder. She never could. But she opened her heart again, allowing Diesel to be something new. They passed certification 6 weeks later, with Diesel earning top marks in scent detection and agility. Their bond grew with every shift, every foot patrol, every quiet night sitting beneath the stars in the squad car. Sarah started taking Diesel to the memorial under the oak tree where Thunder lay. She would sit beside the weathered stone, fingers tracing the engraved words, "My shield, my shadow, my Thunder." Diesel would rest his head in her lap, never barking, just watching her as if he understood the sacredness of that ground. One night, Sarah was dispatched to a domestic disturbance at a rural farmhouse. The situation escalated fast. A barricaded suspect, a terrified child, and a tense standoff. The man inside was armed and unpredictable, shouting threats and firing into the air. Sarah knew negotiation would take too long. When she slipped through the back to reach the child through a side window, Diesel at her side, she gave a silent prayer. Not for herself, but for Diesel. But just as she reached the window, a shot rang out from the front. Diesel didn't hesitate. He launched toward the suspect, disarming him in a flash of fur and fury, pinning him until Sarah reached them. No one was hurt. The child was rescued. Diesel became a hero overnight. Headlines called him the Ghost of Thunder, a name that made Sarah cry when she read it. In the months that followed, Diesel received accolades, awards, and attention from across the state. But for Sarah, none of that mattered as much as the quiet, everyday moments. Diesel resting on the couch with his head in her lap, his tail thumping at the sound of her keys. The way he always sat by the door 10 minutes before every shift, ready, waiting. Slowly, she realized what Thunder had given her wasn't just years of loyal service. It was the courage to love again. Through Thunder, she had learned to heal. Through Diesel, she learned to hope. And so, on a rainy spring morning, Sarah stood again beneath the old oak tree, now grown tall and wide with time. She placed a new stone beside Thunder's, this one smaller, etched with Diesel's name, not because he was gone, but to mark the continuation of something that had never truly ended. "Your partner doesn't have to speak," she whispered, resting her palm on the cold stone, Diesel beside her. "To say everything that matters. You just have to listen. And love them enough to remember." The wind rustled the leaves above, a soft, almost imperceptible breeze that stirred the petals of the flowers she'd laid. In that moment, Sarah felt it again. Not grief, not even sadness, but peace. Because some bonds, those forged in fire, fear, and unshakable trust, never really die. They just change form. They live in new partners, in shared glances, in every step taken with someone who would choose you again and again, even if they couldn't say it out loud. And as she turned to leave, Diesel at her side, She smiled, not because she had moved on, but because she had moved forward. Thunder had taught her how to survive. Diesel reminded her how to live.